Hi, I'm Randy Williams, and I'm back again with more on the Buji form. Now, as you know, I started reading the Buji Wisdom in the last tape, and I'd just like to continue that now. Forward and backward moving footwork changes flexibly. Hands and feet should be closely coordinated. Glass techniques, invisible kick. By sticking to and controlling the opponent, chances of losing are reduced. A well-trained waist can prevent loss of balance. Hand techniques must follow the yin-yang principles. Strength must be exerted with internal power. For every motion, there's a counteraction. A desperate fighter is difficult to handle. A lax fighter is easy to advance upon. Kicks lose 9 times out of 10. The feet are like wheels, the hands are like arrows. An attacking hand can also serve as a parrying hand. Do not collide with a strong arm bridge. Avoid it and be the first to attack. In sticky hands practice, a hand which is entered beyond the elbow will win 9 times out of 10. Do not follow, force, or butt against the opponent's hands. Breaking the center controls the opponent's bridge. In the wing arm deflection, the forearm inclines, the wrist is on the center line, and the fingers droop. A raised elbow weakens the structure. Elbow power must be great, then you will fear no attack. When the opponent traps my arm bridge, I do not fight force with force. And finally, go with the opponent's force using a rolling motion. Turn the situation around to control him. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Loi Doi Gat Kun, inward diagonal punch, which, if you notice, what I do is, from position here, I turn and I punch to the side. And I'm looking that way when I do it. What I don't want to do is be here and look straight ahead while punching. See, where you look in Wing Chun indicates where the center line is and where your focus is. So if you first see this move and you don't quite understand Wing Chun, you might think that I'm like punching across the line. Say, for example, when John's here, it might look to the beginner like I'm going across the line this way, because I am, after all, going across my body. But the important thing is the fact that I'm looking. That shows that I'm actually focused in that direction. That means that I use the diagonal punch when our bodies are in a T relationship. Okay, let's say we're closed. Now, when my body is T'd with his, that's the time when I'll use it. Like here, off of this hand, it goes straight in. So it's actually going across my body, but going in on him. Here again, it looks like, you know, I'm going across myself. But if I look that way, you see that it's actually going straight. It's just traveling across my body when we're in a T relationship. This movement, by the way, is also called Wan Kun, or circle fist, circling into a punch. And the inward diagonal punch is one of the 8 punches of Wing Chun. So you can see that I could use it off either hand. Now, it's kind of like a cross in boxing because it does travel across, or could travel across, his rear hand. Now, in a situation when we're open, say, for example, I was doing some kind of an inward strike, like a chop, and John blocks it inward. I might run it to that movement there. And there again, I have another one. So you could see what I did was I attacked, and when I felt that thing get blocked, I ran it around to a diagonal punch, and then again here. So at speed, that goes like this. See? There's just something magic about pasting someone in the face as hard as you can, isn't there really? So remember that the center line is where you look when you practice a form. It's very important that your focus is where the punch is going. Otherwise, you're going to get the whole wrong idea and think that we're going to be swinging like this, and that's not the way it works. All right, now something else about this punch, as I mentioned before, the diagonal punch comes from Paksao. You just take the hand of Paksao and screw on a fist, the same angle is followed. It's the same exact motion, with the elbow power coming from the same way, the immovable elbow moving line. Now, in other words, where that punch would come high here, and I would use Pak in that way here, it's the exact same motion, but from a closer range. This angle and everything else is the same as that. It's just that you take the whole structure and move it in closer. Put a fist on it. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Loi Fan Fung An Kun, the inside whipping phoenix eye punch. So from position here, I whip my hand in a tight circle to the phoenix eye punch, which has got one knuckle protruding and one thumb is bracing that knuckle to give it that support. Because again, when you hit, your whole hand is going to hit, but that one knuckle is going to dig in further. So you really need that, that thumb support. You really want to have the support in the hand, and you're going to whip that thing from where it is down, kind of like it looks like you're going downwards, but you're actually going down and forwards to a full extension. Now, one of the times I might want to use that tight whipping motion would be, for example, if we were open and the jab came, once I pulled and hit the body here, if that cross came, I might want to whip that hand, because you could see that here I was occupied using that hand. Now I use a yut fuk yi to stop that second one, the same hand. This one in the meantime is whipping into position and forming the phoenix eye. When I do hit, that knuckle's going right into his eye, but the other knuckles are getting buried into his face. It's not like you're trying to purposely poke with the one knuckle. You're primarily using that to dig in a little bit more. But actually, what you want to try to do is, hit with the whole fist. Now, some of the time that I use this as well in sticky hands is I'll use this in a situation where, let's say we're both pivoted. And what I was going to do is, for example, I was going to do whatever kind of punch, and Keith steps that way to avoid it, outside facing. That's when I want to change my angle and come back in with that tight whipping motion. So again, here I shoot my punch and he moved that way, so I have to quickly recover and change the line radically. And I'm using the same hand to hit again, so I needed to create that whip power, like what I talked about at the Chum Q level when you whipped your hand with that Kwun Sao-like vibe. All right, now another thing I get from this is, again, from this punch here and then I whip it down tight, what I'm actually getting is no footwork whatsoever, but I'm again using that Biuji kind of hip cocking motion here. Not only am I getting some power from doing that, but I'm getting it on the way back. So the self-timing is like, from here, it's like the hips go and then the hand goes. So that again comes in handy anytime in sticky hands or whatever that you don't really have the full time. Let's say that I've already been pivoted with whatever shot. Now I want a little bit more power in this next motion. It doesn't even have to be the phoenix eye. I mean, it could be anything else, but I wanted to use the same hand for whatever reason. I want to just go that far with it and just use my hip pivoting or support a little bit of a stance turn, but obviously I don't want to turn all the way because I'm going to be violating the concept of reference. So in that case, I use that real tight hip cock. Now, another way that I might want to use this phoenix eye principle is to blend it with other hits. So I could take and blend it together with, say, Fak Sao and use it upwards, just poking that one knuckle up deeper in. I might want to use it with the outside whip here so that I could hit this way. Or combine it with the Ngan Wun and use it like outwards here and hit to the throat or to the temple. You could be, hitting any different part of the body with these whipping strikes, combining it with the different motions, even, Chao Kun, going upwards. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Chum Sun, or sinking body motion. So you notice that what I do is I keep looking up and I scoop down while looking up and reach between. Then I come up the first time with my left hand out front. My hands go over the head first like an umbrella. Then it comes around to a right guard. Then again I sink down here looking up. This time the right hand comes up first with the hands overhead like an umbrella, and I'm here. And again, sinking down, and this time I come up left hand first to a right guard, and then I go into the kick, which I'll talk more about later. Right now, I just want to talk about the first forward dipping motion. Now, this is where the headbutt of Wing Chun is hidden. Now, I use headbutts all the time in Wing Chun. Say Gavin gives me a shove, I showed how to split that open and use the headbutt. Say we're closed, he gives me the jab. After I do this, I like to use Pan Geng Sao, neck trapping hand with the headbutt. I use the forward headbutt in a lot of different situations. You've seen that quite a few times throughout my entire tape series. Another thing this does is it introduces you to the fact that the Wing Chun guy can sort of get that bob and weave vibe going a little bit when necessary. I mean, it's an emergency situation, but let's say we're open, and Gavin had given me the jab here and put me in the stupid trap. Now, I'm not just going to stand here and let that thing hit me. What I'd rather do, in an emergency situation is duck to the outside of that, So again, what I did was, once I've been trapped, I ducked here, came up, and did whatever came to mind at the time. So you do have that ability to bob and weave in Wing Chun, or to duck. Now, again, that could be bobbing and weaving into a headbutt. Again, here, once I've gotten the trap and I've ducked outside of it, bang, I can headbutt him that way on the way back up, hopefully causing severe drain damage, hopefully to Gavin rather than myself. Now, when I headbutt, I always want to make sure and use the top of my head against his face. I don't want to headbutt, head to head against him. That'll do just as much damage to me as it does to him. Now, the beginning of this motion, when I sink downwards here, what I want to do is I'm actually simulating an emergency situation, which when I get to the Wui Sun, or raising body, or recovering position, I'll explain, why you'd want to do that. But just keep in mind that the Chun sinking is actually helping you simulate like when you've been hit or you're groggy, you've been on the ground and you're kind of, maybe off balance, whatever other reason, emergency situation, you find yourself low to the ground or getting up off the ground. All right, I want to talk a little bit more about the Chun and Wui Sun sinking body and recovering position. So again, like I say, I dip down looking up, then I get up first with my left hand crossed over, and then I end up with a right guard. Then I go back down again, dip down, the right hand's going to come up, and the left guard. And then the third one is the same as the first, but we add the kick. And again, I'll talk about that later. Now, the very first thing you notice when I actually do the form, I don't do it that slow. What I do is I kind of like throw my hands like this. I'm down, and I throw my hands like that. It's sort of a casting feeling, like casting a fishing line. The idea being, if you're a little groggy, you're down or whatever else, you can actually use the momentum of your hands being thrown to help you stand up. So when your legs are a little bit rubbery after you've been hit, you guys that have been clocked in the face before, you know what I mean. You can get a little rubber-legged. So when you use the casting of the arms like that, it helps you stand up. It also helps you get up with a protective umbrella against blows. In other words, what you don't want to do when you're down is you don't want to get up like this, because if you do, chances are someone's waiting to just paste you. So what you want to train yourself to do when you're down is to get up with your hands crossed over as an umbrella against blows. So this is one of the ways that we would use it. And I'll show you that in a minute. Now, an obvious way of using it is as a backwards headbutt, when I'm standing up, hitting my head backwards. In a self-defense situation where, for example, I've been bear hugged, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people will show you to defend against a bear hug. Wing Chun says just bang, move your head backwards and hit them right in the face with it. And, if that doesn't work, you just keep stomping and kicking backwards at the leg. But right now I'm talking about a backwards headbutt, and that's a time I might use it. Another time I might use a backwards headbutt, even if I got hit in the stomach and I was down, I can get up with a backwards headbutt and smack the guy with my head that way, or to the side, or to the other side. You see boxers do that all the time, accidentally on purpose. Now, some of the other ways that I would use this motion of casting and getting up, let's say, for example, we're open like this, and I'm down. I've been downed or whatever. Gavin's about to hit me in the head. I can use that casting motion to keep myself protected on the way up. At the same time, that looping motion helps me get into that reverse Wu trap that I've been showing throughout the series. So this is one of the ways that I might use that, just to get up that way. Not only does that help you avoid being hit either hand that Gavin, if you use the other hand, I'm still going to do the same kind of an idea on my way up. So this helps me trap the arm. Another way I might want to use that same feeling, that same deal, is, for example, if Gavin had done what we call Kun or fist parries fist against me. So if he did fist parries fist, again, I can go into my wrap here, and obviously I can take his foot if I need to. I can use a similar motion if, I had done Biu Jongseao to exclude his punch. Here, again, I'm in position for that wrap and hit. So I can use it that way. If his arm was bent, in another situation, like let's say we're closed, and I get a 1-2 from him, I might go tan here and then use the Biu Jongseao to, exclude him. If his arm were at all bent, that's when I could go into this kind of a lock here and just kick that leg out from under him. He's gonzo. All right, now I'm going to talk about that last Wui Sun motion where you raise the body and do the Wui Sun Jing Gyuk, or raise body with the front kick. So on that last one where I dip down, my left hand comes up overhead, again with the umbrella, and I slide in with the right foot as the right hand comes up, and then I deliver the front kick. So what happens is you see that my opposite hand and foot are extended. And that's important because 90% of the time in Wing Chun, the opposite hand and foot work together. Like you don't normally do two things on the same side if you can help it because of the balance factor. What you want to try to do is exert with both sides so you stay more balanced. It's a little harder to do something on this side because you're a little bit off balance. Both power sides are going like this, and you have a tendency to want to push off and lose your balance. Now, for example, let's say I'm closed with Kenny. Now, what I'd rather do is I'd rather hit and kick with the opposite side for balance. If I do the same side, I have a tendency to be pushing off, like I say. Now, the exception to that is like a second syllable motion. In other words, I wouldn't really want to hit and kick with this same side in the first motion of a fight. Like when the jab came, I wouldn't really want to do that because I have a tendency to fly back. Now, if on the other hand I had done this here, it's okay to then bang on the second syllable, hit both same side, because balance isn't as much a factor. We say in Wing Chun, when I kick, I stand on 3 legs. That's his 2 and my 1. So in this case, it's okay to hit and kick on the same side. But for the most part, we want to try to balance it out by using the opposite side. Now in the form, you know, I'm down, and again, I'm raising up my hands here, and then I'm getting up into a kick. Now in the same way that I showed a second ago, when Kenny's trying to get me here, I could have been down for whatever reason, and when he went to punch me, I could get up in that same wrap with a kick. Then it just follows up, see? So it shows me how to get up with a kick. Even if the guy was punching me, and I got up here, and then he tried to kick me now, it'd be like, stop that kick before it even gets off the ground. Or even if it did get off the ground a little bit, once I'm up here and I've got him trapped, I could stop kick him, see? So these are some of the ways I might use that. Now, I can use Bujong Sao and kick as a mun sao, as an asking hand, you know, as an initial move. Let's say we're closed, and his guard is up real good. What I might want to do is get his attention on the high line and then kick on the low line at the same time, see? Leads me into a follow-up. I could even deflect a punch with it, and in this way, I could capitalize on his momentum coming forward. See, when he punches and I use Bujong, I'm not stopping him dead, like in his tracks. What I'm doing is like letting him go that way. So he's gliding by me. Now as he's doing that, I can capitalize, see, by kicking him. Because what I did was, I let him go by, and as he's moving forward, bang, that brings him right into that kick, see? So in that way, you can capitalize on his momentum. All right, next I'm going to talk about the cross stomp. You know, after I do that last dip down, come up, go into my front kick, I stomp down with my foot twisted out, which, you know, we talked about some in the Chum Q form, but there's a little bit different emphasis here. Now, some of the ways that I use this cross stomp, I'll give you some examples. Let's say, first of all, when Bobby comes in, and I'm closed with him here. Now, what I might do is, first of all, start with a side step, the seep ma motion, and I go into that inner seep sweep that we talked about before. Now, from here, that's when I might use that stepping behind him, and that gives me the control that I want, see? Now, in another situation, when Bobby gets me into a headlock, see, as I showed before, remember I showed how to soften him up with that grab? Well, this here stomp is right out of that Buji form. So when I take that cross stomp in the form, that can simulate stepping on someone's foot. All right, another way we can use that stomping motion is to trap a guy's foot on the floor when he's retreating quickly. So let's say we're closed and Bobby starts backing up. What I can do is then step on his foot, and that kind of stops him in his tracks and jerks him forward into my hit. Same thing if we were closed and we were really tight, he starts backing up, I can step on it with that cross stomp the same way. And you can see I retrapped it again. All right, another application for that cross stomp, say from a closed relationship, once, let's say I've labeled him in the groin and come down here. When I do my sweep here and stomp, I can use this to stomp here on the leg or stomp down on the foot. All right, now I want to talk a little bit more about that cross stomp, but this time, you know, when it's in relation to the bong sao. Now, in this case, what I can do is, you know, use that cross-legged position to simulate, you know, kicking someone. Use the floor to simulate the person's leg. It's telling you that it's okay to kick when you do bong sao on the opposite side. You see, because of the concept of reference, we know that when we do a yang blocking motion like bong sao, it hogs up all the yang power. That means I'm not able to do a punch with this hand or any other strike because all my yang power is used up here. So you would think, well, I can't, that means I can't attack. You know, that's why I like the yin blocking motions, because it leaves the center line open, it leaves my yang power available. See? But on a more advanced level, okay, a yang block, which is usually easier to pull off and more common, it's telling you that it's okay to kick at the same time. So for example, like in the lap sao cycle, when we're doing lap, where I would normally just use my hands to defend, I can stop it here, and then add the kick to that third syllable. And again, it'd be like stop it, wu sao, and then add the kick with the bong sao. Now, I could do the same thing if Kenny was kicking on the third syllable, because I'd stop it here, and then stop kick that last time. And again, stop it here, and then stop kick on that last syllable. All right, another way to use that cross bong and kick combination with that stomp on the floor simulating a kick would be if we were closed and Kenny threw the first jab, so I stopped it with the Bujong sao and kick from earlier. Now, as I come down, he's going to try to hit again, so I come down with the bong sao and I'm stomping on his foot. That's a gum foot, or gum sao foot. It's like the companion to the gum sao, but using the foot. Now that I have his foot trapped like this, I can go right into another motion and he has nowhere to go with it. Now in another situation, using the same kind of an idea, once I've done this first movement, I could plant against that second one, and now I'm set up, see, by the way I put my foot down, to pull his foot right out into the trap. All right, another way we use the cross stomp with the Dai Bong Sao is to simulate Gum Gyuk, or pressing foot, which is the companion foot to the Gum Sao, pressing or pinning hand. Now just like in sticky hands, we use the pressing hand to pin the guy's hand down while we hit him, we do something similar in sticky foot. So for example, when I'm locked up and our legs are here, sometimes what I'll do is I'll slip around and push the guy's foot down and then kick him. Or even when I'm up and he tries to kick me, I'll use that gum foot to press down and stop his leg. Now that works the same way against the other leg. If I was touching his leg here, what I could do is press that foot down and go for the kick, or once my leg is up and he goes to kick, stop that. All right, now still another use for the cross stomp is in ground fighting. Quite often in ground fighting, what you try to do, as I said before, is you step on something to trap it. An example here, I'd want to step on that hand and then use that as a lever to probably break the wrist or the fingers. After having, smashed, I'll use my foot, the cross stomp here, to step on the guy's hand to trap him for further motions, smash here. Once that smash is done, I might even go for the leg smash and transfer this to a kick and then step on the guy's head. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Dai Bong Sao Wang Gyuk, or low wing arm deflection side kick. So from position here, what I do is keep my Bong Sao in position and throw the side kick. So it's like stomp, side kick. Now part of the reason why we leave Bong Sao up when we side kick is as a Jong Sao, or a guarding hand. Now normally when we kick on the low line, we just keep our Jong Sao, or guarding hand, in position. But when you start kicking higher, or you start turning your body like you do in the side kick, you're going to find that you're going to be working at cross purposes, leaving your hand up like that, and your elbow is going to bump into your knee. You're also going to find out that you're overprotecting the body and underprotecting the head when you could be protecting the head a little bit better. So what we do is we just take the Jong Sao and flip it to Bong, and it still serves the same purpose. Now that also helps you deflect the guy off the line, a lot like when I showed how we did the Bu Jong and kick, where he was just sliding past me as I met him with the kick. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the side kick. Let's say, for example, when John's in and we're open, the Bong Sao itself against his jab lets him slide by without really stopping him. So if I add the kick to that, here, what I can do is actually let him slide past, and his momentum goes forward into the kick. Now, speaking about momentum, at Chum Kiu level, I told you about the plant trap hit principle, or the idea of using your descending momentum after the kick to give power to the hands. In other words, I was saying that when you dropped from the kick, you could use that power and sink it into your hands. Now at Buji level, a little bit more complex usage of that principle would be to reverse it and say, I can also use my hands to give power to the kick when the arm's not being used and it's not needed for guarding purposes. Now an example of when I might want to do that would be when we're open against the 1-2 from John. Now what I did here was I stopped the jab, then I used my hand throwing downwards to add power to the stop kick. It also loaded me up for the Fan Sao retrap. See, so at the same time it was chambering for the grab. In a similar way, that iron palm technique I showed earlier also uses the same kind of an idea. Because once I stop the 1-2 here, and then hit again, I can drive my hand down to give power to that side kick. Now, some other times when I might want to bong and side kick, let's say we're open, and the first shot comes in, I might want to go bong side, and when the second shot comes in, just plant with that second shot here. If we were closed against the 1-2, let's say, for example, when the first one came in, I used this. I could actually jump switch into that second one. Another application for that might be if I just didn't kick it all the first time here, and then I went with the cross at the same time. All right, another way I might want to use that Bong Sao Jing Gyuk is as a shadowless kick. Let's say, for example, that first one came in, and I stopped it here. When that cross came in, I could just keep the same foot up in the air and kick again a second time. Because after all, when we kick the same target area like the knee, what we don't want to do is use the same type of kick twice. We need to turn the foot over to get a little bit more power. and to add the torque of the body. See, because you spent your torque here, so when that next shot comes in, bang, it could be used there. Now, even if I didn't do that first kick, if I had just stopped it here and when that next one came, bang, it's the same idea there, and then just follow up. All right, next I'm going to talk about Duk Lap Ma Bong Gyuk, which is independent horse stance with the wing leg deflection. Now, what this does is introduces us to the basic one-legged independent horse stance, Duk Lap Ma. There's a proverb in Wing Chun that's Chi Gyuk practice is inseparable from independent horse stance. What it does is teaches us how to keep our balance when we're kicking or leg blocking. It also introduces you to the concept of Bong Gyuk, which is, like I say, the wing leg deflection. It tells you that there are corresponding hands and feet in Wing Chun. Like I say, there's Bong Sao and there's Bong Gyuk. There's Tan Sao and there's Tan Gyuk. There's Jet Sao and there's Jet Gyuk. There's Ngoi Jet Sao, there's Ngoi Jet Gyuk. You know, there's Fuk Sao and there's Fuk Sut. There's Ding Sao and there's Ding Sut. There's Wu Sao and there's Wu Foot. There's Pak Sao and there's Pak Foot. Now, there's no cow foot. Or is there? I mean, how could cows walk if there was no cow foot? No, I don't think there's a cow foot anyway. You'd have to have real long toes to be able to do that. In any case, when we do the single sticky foot exercise, Chi Dan Gyuk, we use that motion of Bong Gyuk. Now let me show you how that works. I think it probably show better from this side. When we're here and we're locked up, when Gavin goes to front kick, I Bong Gyuk. Then when I go to side kick him, he does Jet Gyuk. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 3. But you can see how when his front kick comes up, my Bong Gyuk deflects him off the line in a very similar way to the way Bong Sao deflects the hand. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about here is the fact that I had been mentioning all through the series that you can link the forms together and do them as one long form. But you go, well, wait a minute. The Siu Lim Tao form and the Chum Kyu form ended like this. Now, the Buji form, it kind of ends up on one leg. You know, you're like this. Well, you're like this. And you go, well, how come it ends up on one leg? What does that mean? Well, what it really means is you could end the form that way, you know, finish everything up, just like it is in the Buji form. You know, here, go to the side kick, balance, you know, and then just close it up. Or, if you're a little bit more advanced, you can then say, well, I guess that means I should go back and do my Siu Lim Tao on one foot. So in other words, you'd like end the form, side kick here, and then you could just go here and then start your Siu Lim Tao form all on one leg, you know, which represents a high level of development. So there you go. Start the whole thing over again. Do your Siu Lim Tao on one leg, and as soon as you're done, do it on the other leg. All right, that's all for now. So until next time, this is Randy Williams saying, don't you hate those stupid kung fu-y movies where the voice never matches the lips? So, you think your kung fu's pretty good, eh? Well, you're no match for the Chang brothers. Get him, boys!
Right.
See you later. If you'd like to learn more in depth about the drills and techniques shown in both this tape series as well as my previous series, my 6-volume book set, Wing Chun Kung Fu, The Explosive Art of Close Range Combat, is available through Clean Ace Printing Press in Singapore. Smokin'.